Yeah. Thank you, Deborah. To answer your question, I had an indirect experience, you might say, but I think it's totally relevant here because we had our 19-year-old grandson who just spent several days with us here. And I was recalling when he was about 3, maybe, and Len and I were at their house, and Nico would go out in their backyard, and they had a garden that had, I think, myrtle or some little low plant. And Nico would literally lie down on his stomach, and the plant was covered with honeybees. And he would literally pet the bees. He put his fingers on the bees, and he would pet them, and they didn't respond. I mean, they felt his good vibes, I guess. And I would stand there and watch in amazement, and I actually wrote a poem about the boy who could pet bees. So this conversation and meeting the sacred, that's what that reminded me of, because it was such a beautiful exchange between this little boy who had total interest, trust, and love in these bees, that he was not even thinking about getting stung or anything else, and he didn't. So that would be what I would share.
Thank you, Libby.
I do have a question that you can save for later. And the question is, you described when you're in your yard with the bees, how your presence changes the nature of the relationship, or that's what I heard you say, that something happens between you and the bees, and your state of being evidently has something to do with that. And I'm wondering if you could describe a little bit more about the feeling that you have when that dance between you and the bees is at its best.
Thank you, Libby. Thank you very much. Who would like to go next? Len.
There. When I was a boy, and we brought the train from Minnesota to California, and one of the first young men I met, the other boys in the neighborhood, taught me to relate to nature. And he took me into the hills and into the desert, and he taught me to move beyond fear and to catch snakes and lizards, and had the snakes, wind around our bodies, and I loved them, and I collected snakes and lizards in my home, and it was just a beautiful thing to experience, that I'm not separate from things that many people are afraid of. And it's one of the great experiences in life to move beyond that fear. It was for me. Also, Libby doesn't know it, but a long, long time ago, I recorded her poem, and this is it. And maybe she would like to read it. So, Libby, why don't you read right through it?
Well, talk about being on the spot. Len, that was a slick move.
Are you there, Libby? Don't read it, she said.
Well, don't do it now, because there's too many people who want to share.
Okay,
I didn't know you had us. We'll send it to Deborah.
Let's move on, but that was my experience in nature helping me feel more at one with all of life.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Len. Who'd like to go next? If nobody volunteers, I'm going to call on you. Oh, okay, Polly, you're on. Just unmute yourself there. There you go.
Thank you for the reminder to unmute. And I've been sitting with, I'm not remembering when I didn't know that experience of kinship with all life. There are one of the earliest memories I have where it was a very heightened awareness was being a young child and seeing a turtle, an eastern box turtle, lay her eggs. We had a hole in the backyard in an area that I played in. And I had many encounters as a child, one with a fox, which led me to the first experience of knowing when I was speaking my truth and not being heard, and not being believed by other humans, and with a black bear when I was 10, but it's been almost all my life. And a very profound experience last spring of being in a swarm of wild honeybees when they came in was an incredibly expansive experience of kinship. It was a very sacred experience. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. I engaged with plants and animals and insects all of my life, and it's part of my work as an adult, as a communicator among other than human life forms with humans.
Thank you, Polly. Thank you. Who would like to go next? So, who is that with Ofu?
That's my wife.
What's your
My
name?
wife. Hola.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good to meet you. We know your husband so well, and it's nice
Hola.
to see you as well.
Her name is Hola.
Good evening. Nice meeting you people.
I don't know if you're ready. Are you ready to share an answer to Deborah's question, an encounter with a non-human, plant, animal that opened up a spiritual path for you?
It's a very interesting topic.
It's too bad the bandwidth is not
But
good.
unfortunate, I didn't follow up in time to. Yes, I'd love to contribute. To her teachings, but in order to follow up the introduction of the topic, so that I'll be able to reflect and contribute. But I'm just learning from her reflections. I believe it's very inspiring.
Thank you, Ofu. Thank you, Ola. Okay. Who else would like to, feels ready to speak? Let's see, Kamyar, okay. I need to unmute your audio. I'll unmute it for you. There you go, you're unmuted.
How is my voice?
Your voice is great.
Perfect, great. So I spent some time in a land in Greece where Sarah lived, my other friend and soul guide, for a couple of years. And it was a land where people had a conscious relationship with the land and they practiced it on a daily basis. So when others came to that land, they had more chance to experience that life is talking through grasses, through bees, through trees, through animals. But one of my experiences was Sarah used to tell me, I used to take the dog for a walk in the morning and in the evening all over the land. And she would always tell me, just watch out what he's telling you, Freddy, the dog. And in the beginning, I was like, what the hell are you talking about? It's a dog, it's just running and peeing, and I walk after him and come back. So, but through time, I learned that he is actually communicating through patterns and telling me things which I don't understand. But there was one day where I was actually saying goodbye to the land, and I knew I'm not going to go back for a couple of years. And I followed Freddy, and he started to dig very intensely. And then, okay, Freddy, are you done? Let's go. But he kept digging and he kept digging. And there was a moment I realized I need to listen. And what do you want from me? And the moment I gave my presence, he ran away and he brought a piece of wood. And then he brought another one. And suddenly I started to put them together without even thinking. And I looked around, I found a piece of mirror in the middle of nowhere in the forest. I found a cup of water, a perfect spiral wood. And in a few minutes, the whole thing became a structure, a pyramid with a mirror on it and a water. And later on, when I researched, it was like a symbol of the sacred masculine. So I was very surprised, but what came through. And that symbol, and I have an image of that creation, which didn't come from my mind, or I didn't create it. It was the dog insisting me to make something. And that was the gift he offered me. When I left that land, it was the gift he gave me the last day. And actually tonight our dogs are coming back, and I'm welcoming them in the same spirit. I know 2 guides are coming to my life, and I hope in the coming months and weeks I can allow them to teach me things. So thank you for hearing the story.
Thank you, Kamyar. Who'd like to go next?
I can go next.
Seda, great.
Yeah, my story is also with dogs. Tonight our dogs are coming back, and it's really true what we are going to have with them after 2 months situation. It was last year I was to apply to the city life, and I was doing some paperwork, and it was such a tiring moment that in the middle of all that flow that really made me tired, and all those high buildings and people and crowd, everything, I really needed something. Actually, I wasn't aware that I needed something, but suddenly I felt the need to sit on a bench. And then I noticed 2 dogs who were really behaving very, very natural, in their own way. But there were people around who were observing them in a way that there was something unnatural or unexpected about them. But what they made to me, and what they did to me in that moment, that it was, they really stopped me. They invited me to slow down, to sit, to observe, to notice things that I hadn't noticed before, and to realize that sacred is everywhere as long as I'm seeking it. Mm. And through their patterns, the game they played together, their also patterns and behaviors were different. One was very playful, one was more calm. But really observing them really calmed me. And also it shifted my relationship with dogs, specifically with dogs. And I didn't know that 1 year later, puppies will come to my life. Before that, I had lived with a cat. It's totally a story with cats. But there's something about that sacredness that as long as you seek it, it's all the beings, but especially the non-human beings, do it in a very, very natural way with their wilderness, with their nature, everything.
Thank you, Seda. Who'd like to go next? Diane.
So I'm thinking of a couple of incidents where I'm aware, looking back, that what has occluded my ability to be in sacred relationship with the non-human is mostly been fear. The kind of fear that might overtake me when I'm in a natural environment where I don't know what's coming, and there have been bears and various things where mostly it's been, the fear that I've been aware of. But when I come into a place where I'm deeply open as a channel, I've noticed that then creatures become amazing witnesses to that process. And two that instances that I'm thinking of were both times I direct a program called Embodying Spirit, and we do our Shabbat services outside, and we read the Torah outside. So once in Santa Cruz Mountains at the Bosch Baha'i Center, and then a second time at another retreat center in Northern California, we were reading the Torah, and in this one instance, an eagle came and sat on the top of a pine tree, or a redwood tree actually, and was with us the entire time we were reading this part of the Torah, which is about the tribes being in the wilderness and how they were arranging themselves in sacred form. And as soon as we finished, the eagle left. And a second instance was when we were reading the Torah under a grape arbor in Four Springs, which is north of Calistoga. And the land itself is so sacred in these places. And we were reading a section about Sarah, was the priestess, the wife of Abraham, but really a priestess of the divine feminine in some traditions. And one bee came and just flew right over the Torah as we were bringing through the wisdom of this particular part of the Torah. And it was just this moment of deep recognition for everyone there, like, that Sarah energy had come to witness and bless what we were doing in that moment, the wisdom that we were inviting to come through. So those are two of many instances, but they were notable to me because of being in that space of connecting with the deep sacredness in my tradition. I wasn't occluded by any fear, just present. And that's when the connection could be made.
Thank you, Diane. Who's next? Wendy, you need to unmute yourself there. Lower left. There you go. You're good.
It always seems that I'm relating to non-human beings the way it is. I can think of just two off the top of my head. One does involve bees. We have a garden, and there's some rosemary plants, and the rosemary plants flower, and there are bees that circle around, and it's so calming. It almost feels like a lullaby when I hear them buzzing, and it just calms me completely. And so it helps me relax and be present when my mind might be like a bee buzzing around, and in fact, it just calms my mind. And the other instance is my cat just walked in, my cat Shemayim. He came to me as a feral cat, and he's never lost his wildness. He's like, even though with me he's extremely loving, everything else is wild about him. And through him, and trying to understand just what his needs are and what his, wild needs are, it's gotten me in touch with the sacred wildness. And I really treasure that gift from him. He's not like the usual laugh cat. He's just wild, but within that wildness, there's a fierce love too. So.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you. All right. Who is next? Eli, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I'm sorry, I can't remember all the names. I think it was Polly said, like her, I can't remember a time when I didn't really connect in some way on a spiritual level with plants or animals. I do remember as a child hanging out in our backyard, which was full of blooming trees and different things in upstate New York, and realizing that I was not afraid of the bees. And so that does come early. I don't know if that's my first one, but it comes early. I just wasn't afraid of them. They were just playing around like I was in some way, it seemed to me. But it's not all about being unfearful. I had an experience only maybe 10 years ago. I was hiking in northern Israel by myself very early in the morning, and it was in a narrow path in a ravine. And as I'm merrily walking my way, enjoying the solitude, I came face to face with a herd of wild boar. And two of them stood there really big and growled at me and blocked my path. And the rest with the piglets scampered up the hillside. And eventually I did make my way through, but I was very, very frightened. I actually thought I could have been attacked there all alone. And something hit me that there are parallel, you could say, societies going on all around us sometimes that we're not always aware of. So that was another one that struck me very strongly. And then the third I would say is I've been a dog and cat owner my whole life. And we just lost this, just a number of months ago, a dear, sweet pet child that I had for 16 and a half years. And the power of not only looking into her eyes and being with her during dying moments, the preciousness of that, but really a reality of living with a non-human being for 16 years and truly being in relationship, knowing each other's personalities, how we interact with each other, knowing that there is love going in both directions. I don't know if you can describe it to people who haven't experienced it, but you can experience it. And that's all I can say about that one.
Thank you, Eli. Fu, looks like you're ready to speak next. Okay. I've unmuted you. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I connected to the topic from the different reflections that I just collected a few minutes ago. I had a very pathetic experience, and also a very striking experience between my relationship with dogs and cats. From my childhood, my parents loved dogs so much, and that was the first experience I had with a non-human. And the name of the dog is Bingo. Bingo is the name of the dog. When I was 7 years old, Bingo is very kind and very, very cooperative and very emotional. And I remember sometimes when I'm very, very protective. I remember when my neighborhood friends want to hurt me, I see Bingo taking position to defend me. Sometimes Bingo will want to attack the person who wants to attack me and stands to my defense. And I remember a pathetic story when Bingo was a victim of accident. He was struck by a vehicle, and Bingo was very hurt, that situation, and eventually died. It was just as if a human relationship was missing. The whole family were crying, and Bingo was buried, as if he was a woman. A day after, I was going to Bingo's grave, and I was a mourning situation with the whole family because my parents loved so much Bingo. And at the same time, when I was about 4 years ago, during the post-electoral violence in Côte d'Ivoire, I've never had a relationship with a cat. But I remember my grandmother do have so many cats, but I never know exactly the experience of keeping cats or how cats live with relationship with women. But my first experience was during the conflict, during the war. I have a barbering saloon, and I still have one today. I came to my shop, and I saw a lost baby cat. and the cat was staring at me. And the cat was staring at me as if he was lost looking for a master or a home. So as the cat was staring at me from about 10 meters away, and I was eating some cookies and some other food. That period, there was scarcity of food during the horrible experience of the war. So I have to give a little, I showed a little to the cat. And as I showed a little to the cat came closer. And I threw it closer to the cat ate. And when the cat ate, and I gave more to the cat, and the cat ate more. I felt that the cat will leave. I felt that just 1 second, I felt the cat will leave after the food. But to my greatest surprise, the cat never go anywhere. The cat remained with me, and the cat remained so closer to me every day, until a horrible experience happened to the cat, which I will not go into because of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ofu. Good to hear about you. Thank you. Who else? Akiva, Sonia, Mary, who would like to speak next? Sonia, looks like you're ready.
Yeah. When this prompt was said, the first thing that came to my heart was my relationship to water, especially to the Aegean Sea, which I love deeply. And whenever I am with her, I don't know, it's like purifying, clarifying my thoughts, and I get a lot of inspiration, and it's always very sacred moments. And also last June, when I was at a women's circle gathering in Turkey, we went to be with nature on our own to receive a message. And I was with the Aegean Sea there, not touching her because it was on the mountain. And then she told me those two very simple sentences: let yourself be, let all be. And they have been with me ever since. And yeah, it's for me very alive, water. I learn a lot from water, from the sea.
Beautiful, thank you. The sea is a non-human creature. It's beautiful. Who's next? Hey, okay, Daria, looks like you're next. Good.
Yeah, I can go next. Yeah, I also I have a lots of connection with dogs. Like, but the story what I want to share is with another animal. It was a moment that I share a special moment with a donkey that looking through, I don't know if it was a she or he, but her eyes was so big, and yeah, it's just it was a very sacred moment. I remember that, like, connecting me, and I was like in the mountain, and he was, or she was like her neck was tight, like waiting for her owner, but it was stuck there. And when I first came to her, she was very, how do you say, like very afraid. But then I sit to the stone, and I was trying to give a space, and then somehow like she wants to communicate with me, and she just came very in a soft way, and she was like showing her face, and I was like sharing love each other, and I was looking her eyes, and I was feeling very sad because she was tired, and I want to give as a remembrance my favorite necklace, no, bracelet. Yeah. So we shared that beautiful, and I put into her. Yeah, and it was a very beautiful. I received a message from her, like not words, but just this interconnection, and yeah, it was that moment.
Thank you, Turia. Beautiful. Yeah, Kindala, how about you?
Well, I think growing up also, I think like often we had lots of animals. My parents were lovers of animals a lot.
You
So we
grew up
had,
in Nigeria, right?
yes, I did.
Yeah.
And so we had donkeys, we had pigs and goats, and we had a little farm. Even though both my parents were actually medical practitioners, but it was interesting. But I think once my dad sent a German Shepherd from Germany when he was doing his specialization in Germany. And so we really got to love this amazing dog. And for the first time for us as kids, I think we really had this very heart-to-heart connection with that dog. And I remember when that dog, unfortunately, in Nigeria, we have sometimes exposed, gutter-ways, on some of the streets. And unfortunately, it was close to where they had some trucking business that unfortunately had oil in the gutter. And so the dog fell into the gutter. We took the dog to the vet, but the oil actually went into his body. And eventually the dog died. And that was a really moving moment for all of us. So it was very touching. Yeah, I think that was my first time really having a sense of the connection with animals, with non-humans.
Cool. Thank you, Kindala.
Welcome.
Let's see, Mary, are you still there?
I am still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Would you like to share your reflection?
I would. First, I'd like to thank Deborah for that incredible question for all of us. And I've had, in the past 10 years, I guess cats came into my life as feral cats in the neighborhood, and I would feed them and watch them. And some of them became friendly and some did not. And one in particular became quite close to me. And I watched her. We also have coyotes here and lots of wildlife, even though we're not too far from the center. And my favorite cat came back one day with a terrible slit in her throat, a gaping wound. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to take her and get her treated. Something's got to be done. But as I tried to capture her, she evaded every effort. And I just sat and watched her, and she rolled in the dirt and filled her wound with dust and dirt. And I thought, that's the end of her. She's really done it now. And 3 days later, she came back. The gaping wound was healed. And I thought, this is a good lesson. Animals do know how to take care of themselves, and we have to respect that. And when my bees came into my life, which was another unexpected surprise. I was interested, and someone said, well, you should take a class, you should read all you can. And I'd been following Rudolf Steiner's way and thought, well, I could take a class here, but maybe I'll wait and read about the anthroposophical way of dealing with bees and being with bees. And in the meantime, my friend down the street, who was a beekeeper, called and said, are you still interested in bees? I said, I am. She said, well, I'm switching to a different hive system and I've ordered bees. Would you like to buy them? And I said, well, I have no equipment. I'm not really ready. She said, that's okay. I'll help you. So the bees came rather suddenly into my life. I drove home from the bee club with a car full of like 6,000 bees in my car. Somehow they escaped from their little nuke box. And in the morning, my car was full of 5,000 or 6,000 bees flying around. And I thought, well, what do I do now? My mentor said, you have to drive your car out to the spot where they're going to be. So I got in my car with the bees, and they were amazing. I mean, to be in that sound and in that presence and drive them, not one bee came near me to hurt me or scare me. And we got out to the hive and opened the back of the car and shook the bees and then put a white sheet down, and I watched with utter amazement all the bees march into this hive to be with their queen. And after that, there was no turning back. I mean, I'd spend every day lying on the ground in front of the hive, just watching the miracle of their lives. And
Thank you, Mary.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing your story. It's great. Has everyone gone so far? Do we miss anyone? Wendy, how are we doing? We're doing all right? Okay, so I guess it's my turn. Let me just do something here. Okay. So what I thought of Deborah is a redwood grove. I drive north along the coast every year. I go to visit my daughter in Portland, and along the way, I camp out in various redwood forests. And one year, I just really messed up in my timing. Nothing was working. I get caught in traffic. I'm there late. I have to set up my tent in the dark. It's cold. There are insects. I'm just not a very happy camper. And so the next morning, I crawl out of my tent. There's a bunch of redwood trees around where I am. And I decide to just sit there for a while. And then I feel myself in the presence of these ancient beings. And they're speaking to me, not in human language, but in redwood language, you know? And what they're saying is, hey, we've been around a long time. We've seen a lot. And we're here to be present with you now. And I got that. And then I got the images, you know, of the really tragic history in California of how human greed has treated the redwood forests, of the loggers cutting down, you know, wholesale redwood forests to trees that are, you know, hundreds, even thousands of years old, you know, sold for a quick profit. And I felt so sad. And the redwood trees said, hey, we're here now. We've been around for a long time. We've seen a lot, and there's more to come. And we can be here right now. That's what I learned from the redwood trees, from the ancient beings. Afterwards, I felt that I had an obligation to do something to preserve them, to protect them. I want to share a screen with you. I looked around for a long time and couldn't find an organization that felt right. And then You know, I'm a volunteer with the service-based community, one of the many overlapping communities that we all have that interlink with each other. I got to interview this guy, David Millark, who said, we're not here to protect the forest, we're here to reforest. We're here to create the opportunities for new life, for new forests. And if you are interested, I'll share that. I realize I can join those folks. They take redwood trees that are in areas that are being sort of changed by climate change, and they're moving them further north where they can have a better chance to live. And I realized, okay, I'm going to hang out with the redwood trees by carrying little seedlings into these new forest areas. So that's my response to your question, Deborah.